Famosa Slough Wetlands Preserve. Where natives come home to the neighborhood. Famosa was created by floodwaters washing silt and mud down the San Diego River, filling in the east end of island Point Loma. The slough was part of the river estuary and delta. Watershed rainwater drained into the ponds at the south end, while river flooding entered from the north. Today, a sluice gate controls the flow of the water from the now channeled river. Development and flood control work have left little of the original tidal flats, so that today the preserve is a very small remnant of a large river delta.
Consultant, been active in San Diego County since the 70s. I was born in National City, so it's kind of a local person, know the resources pretty well. I became involved with the Famosa Marsh and Slough Complex as part of a survey we did for the city of San Diego back in the early 70s, and then when the Coastal Conservancy grant came in, we were kind of brought on board because of our experience. The product that came about with all the input from technical groups, residents, environmental groups, the city, the Coastal Conservancy, and then of course the consultants, which was our firm, Pacific Southwest Biological Services, and it was done of course for our Parks and Recreation liaison at the time. The preparation was funded by the Coastal Conservancy, and at the time Jim King was the liaison with us.
A nice place to live. When we first came out here, the person that owned this property was going to develop it into apartments down here and then have sort of a waterway canal. And the Friends of the Slough saved it for us. I'm waiting for the bus, and it ought to be here just about any minute now. But you can come in here and you can bird watch all year long. And the blue herons have come back. From time to time you actually see the osprey. They're waiting to catch a fish, and then always little birds, and it is just great.
Hi, I'm Jim Prine. I'm with the Citizens Group. My wife and two children and I live over in Loma Portal, and so about probably 5-6 years ago we were just driving by and stopped by and pulled weeds, and from that point I've been able to get more involved, and happy that I have been. And take my 5-year-old son out here, and he helps me plant and pull weeds, and he knows the difference between the native saltgrass and the non-native Bermuda grass from the seed heads, and so it's a great experience for me, and then also for my son. On the board, and happy to be out here working with all the other volunteers. Today there's planting on both sides of the slough, but here we are on the channel side, doing a lot of planting over the last 2 years. This was completely a weedy area as of 2 years ago, and we're making steady progress. Today, with the volunteers, we're putting in native bunch grasses for California. Over time, the native bunch grasses will compete well against all the non-native grasses. We just need to keep improving the density of native grasses. This area, we are sort of hoping to make a demonstration area. We also have some native shrubs that we've added, a couple coast live oak trees. Here we have a couple coastal golden bush that we put in about 2-3 years ago as 1-gallon plants, and we're fortunate enough to put them in during the El Nino year, and they within 1 year got to be 4 or 5 feet high, which is not typical. Benefited from the extra water that year.
Paul Zucker, and I help out here maybe 3 or 4 times a year. And we're pulling out invasive grass. One of them is called kikuyu, and there's a lot of it. We're filling up like 30 bags or so. And then we're trying to dig out this ditch here so it gets low enough so that the water flows correctly, because it rained a week or so ago, and it filled up.
Hi, my name is Nick, and we are cleaning up kikuyu grass, which was artificially planted here and is taking over other grasses, as you can see. So what we're doing is taking out the grasses straight from the root, but as you can see, the grasses don't want to come out that easily, so it's a whole lot of work, but we're cleaning this up, and it makes you feel good.
We are planting. We are planting.
My name is Tim Fleming. I'm on the board of the Friends of Famosa Slough. We're putting in Artemisia californica and some baccharis and some toyon and lemonade berry. Let's see, we planted some encelia, so there's some California sunflowers. These are coastal scrub plants. These are our upland plants. That's our general palette that we use for all of our gardens.
I used to live just a couple blocks over, and that was back in, I guess 1986, 87. And back then, I think that, from what I remember, the slough was filled with a lot more sediment then. You saw birds, but certainly not the variety that you see now. And they were mostly like, sparrows and things like that. So there was a lot of trash in here, a lot of weedy type things. So it's certainly a lot different, and they've certainly, in the last few years, really accelerated.
I'm Jim Pugh, and I'm the chairman of the board of directors of Friends of Famosa Slough. And we're out here after sort of a mild rain. It rained, I guess, about 1/1700ths of an inch up till about 20 minutes ago. And then water's, it's not raining right now, but the water's coming off the watershed. And we can see the trash rack that we put in has quite a bit of trash on it, but a lot more trash, unfortunately, has come out into here. So we'll have to clean this up after this rain is over. I'm going to scoop up a little bit of water. I have to be careful not to stir up the mud on the bottom so that the water sample isn't dirtier than it would have been. And this isn't scientific or anything. This will just be to sort of see if we can see what the water looks like coming into the slough or into the treatment ponds. Then we'll go down to the bottom of the treatment ponds where the treatment ponds have hopefully, trapped out a lot of this stuff, and see what the water looks like down there. Before the ponds were put in, about 3 years ago, all this dirty water would have gone straight into the slough. And the sediment part was gradually filling up the slough, and the trash was real hard to get out, and so a lot of it just went out into the slough uncaptured. And the slough, also the vegetation in the slough, hopefully will take up a lot of the nutrients that are in the water that comes off the street. Okay, this is a spillway off of a Montalvo Street that's made of interlocking concrete blocks. And the idea of this is if we poured a solid concrete spillway, the water would come off here really fast and nothing would go through it. But you see the beardless wild rye is growing right through the concrete blocks, and eventually it'll be more or less covered with them. And so we get the advantage of water coming off the street slow, so when it hits the dirt, it doesn't erode it. And also, the wetland plants are already starting to work on the water even before it gets out to the dirt area. And you'll see this kind of material is called armor lock in a bunch of other places in the slough. All of our spillways are built with this for largely the same reason. The water that comes down Mentone Street from people washing their cars and things like that gets trapped in here, and you see where sediments have come off the street and piled up around these plants. This is a kind of a marsh grass called beardless wild rye. It's an environmentally sensitive catchment basin. We have slits along the side of this. This is just a vertical pipe. It goes straight down. Instead of being concrete or waterproof on the bottom, it's porous. It's just a bunch of rocks down there, so that during dry weather, the water can soak down into the ground and be filtered by the ground before it gets out to the slough. During wet weather like this, there's a 1 inch or 1 foot pipe that goes off to the side that's about a foot above the bottom. So the water, a lot of water soaks into the ground, but then when there's too much soaking into the ground, it goes out into the slough. And on top, we have another trash rack to keep, things like big plastic bags from going down and stopping it up. We planted overall 50 willows back. We had a mitigation requirement to plant 18, and we wanted a lot more willow than that, so we put in 50. This is called Weir 4, and this is where the water leaves the treatment ponds and goes into the slough over here.
My name is Victor, and I'm here at the Famosa Slough, and it's just a great opportunity to come out and improve the local environment and have a great day looking at birds and participating in just making San Diego a better place. I live in Encinitas, which is, has a lot of great lagoons, Bataquitas Lagoon and San Elijo Lagoon also. So we're really lucky to have these places to visit, and it's unique in the world.
I'm Bill Howell, naturalist for Nature's Way Productions. Here in Famosa, Slough, it's a great place. Right here close to us, we've got a salt bush full of pygmy blue butterflies, great blue herons, snowy egrets, miscellaneous other water birds are there. Famosa Slough has been recently restored. This is elderberry. Elderberry you can find in the mountains, the foothills, some areas in the desert even, and of course you can find it here at Famosa Slough. We're going to have a tremendous diversity of bird life in this area, as well as other kinds of plants and animals. Interesting things about a slough such as this is the tremendous diversity of habitat. You've got fresh water, seawater, and brackish in between. At certain times of the year, you'll have a more freshwater environment, for example, in the winter after the rains. Later on, there'll be encroachment by the sea. This is a marshland habitat, a lot of diversity, and the plants that live here are very particular as to where they'll do well. Along the edge here, you've got a group of plants. Fricania, for example, is one where it can't be too wet, it can't be too dry. It's sort of in between. You go further out, you've got plants that are doing well where it's wet. Some plants are found no place else on the planet but marshlands. So Famosa Slough is really worth keeping an eye on.
Famosa means famous in Spanish. This wetlands preserve is not only famous but fortunate. 33 acres is all that remains of the old San Diego River mouth and delta. This park was scheduled in the 1970s and 80s to be developed like the surrounding 300 acres that make up this watershed that drains into the sea. 1 block away from the slough is a large cake-shaped apartment complex. That was the mouth of the San Diego River in 1950. When the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers designed and built the latest change in the river, their goal was to get stormwater out of Mission Valley into the sea as fast as possible. The slough, which is an old oxbow of the river, was left high and supposedly dry. Rainwater and surface street runoff kept the slough soggy, sometimes very wet and sometimes almost dry. Fill dirt from the construction projects was dumped onto the property. What resulted was a swampy, weedy public eyesore. The slough deteriorated into a mosquito, rat, and feral cat infested zone where homeless camps abounded. In the 1980s, neighborhood environmental groups challenged plans of a developer. A battle was waged with each side changing the flap gates at the river to suit their interests. Tidal flow was let into the preserve to flush and clean the wetlands by the greens, and the gates were shut by the property to dry it out. The issue was resolved in 1991 when the city purchased the south 20-acre tract. After the purchase, a grant was received from the California Coastal Conservancy to create an enhancement plan for the restoration of the slough. The Friends of Famosa Slough, the City of San Diego, and other interested parties are implementing the enhancement plan. In the years since the plan was adopted, many native plants and animals have returned. Let us finish off the story of Famosa Slough by meeting some of the returnees.